I knew something was wrong the second I stepped out of the rideshare and saw the movers. 3 men in navy shirts stood on the sidewalk outside my building, leaning against stacks of boxes. My boxes with my handwriting on them. My handwriting. At first I honestly thought they had the wrong address. Maybe one of my neighbors was moving out. Maybe someone had borrowed my old Sharpie. Maybe anything other than the truth already pounding in my chest. But then one of the movers lifted his clipboard and asked you Ava Coleman. His tone was casual, like he was confirming a food delivery. When I nodded, he said the words that knocked the breath out of me. "We were told to clear out your penthouse. New owner gets the keys this afternoon." I stared at him, frozen, the sounds of the city muffling around me. New owner, my penthouse. And that was when my phone buzzed with a message from my mother that made my vision blur for a moment. "Don't be dramatic. It's done. We helped your sister. Stop acting like you're the only one who matters. You can figure out where to stay tonight." Then another bubble appeared. "Welcome to the real world, homeless girl." I never knew cruelty could be typed so casually. But they didn't know something even I hadn't said out loud yet. The penthouse they had just sold wasn't what they thought it was, and the moment they found out, everything would explode. I stood there on the sidewalk with the movers waiting, people walking past, sun beating down on the back of my neck, my suitcase still at my feet from the ride home from the airport. Hawaii suddenly felt like a different lifetime. My vacation tan didn't match the storm building inside my chest. I swallowed hard, forced myself to breathe, then said quietly, "Could you just give me a minute?" The mover nodded. "Take your time. This is a rough one, huh? If only he knew." I stepped away, my hands shaking as I dialed my mother's number. She answered instantly, her tone sharp, impatient, as if I were the inconvenience, not the victim of whatever madness they had just unleashed. "You there yet?" she asked. "Good. Saves me the trouble of explaining." "Mom," I whispered. "What did you do?" "What we had to," she snapped. "Emily was drowning, Ava. Drowning. She couldn't pay her debts. She could have gotten hurt. And you, Miss High and Mighty Tech Salary, could afford to do something about it." "You sold my home," I said. "My home." "Oh, please," she scoffed. "What do you need a penthouse for? You're one person. Your sister is building a family someday. She needs stability, real responsibilities." The irony nearly made me laugh. Emily, my 28-year-old sister who still lived like a teenager with a credit card. "Mom," I said slowly, "I never agreed to this. Not once." "Well," she replied, "that's why we used the document you signed years ago. And thank God we did, or Emily would have been ruined." I froze. "What document?" "That power of attorney thing," she said lightly. "The one you signed after your surgery when you were, 23? We updated it a while ago." My heart dropped into my stomach. Updated? Without me? I pressed a hand to my forehead. "Mom, that document was for medical decisions. Medical emergencies. It had nothing to do with property." She made a dismissive sound. "You're overreacting. You always do. And I'm tired of the drama." Drama. That word again. The family weapon. My father cut in on speakerphone. "Ava, listen to your mother. This is for the good of the family." "The good of the family," I said, voice trembling. "You threw me out of my own home." "You'll land on your feet," he said. "You always do." I closed my eyes. That was the problem. In their minds, I always would, so they never had to think twice about using me as their solution. "And Emily?" I asked. "Where is she?" Before either of my parents could answer, another voice chimed in, bright, unbothered, almost smug. "I'm right here," Emily said. "And honestly, Ava, you should be thanking us." My jaw clenched. "Thanking you? Yes," she said, tone full of self-pity. "If I went bankrupt, it'd ruin the whole family. This helped everyone, including you. You're too young to be tied to one place anyway. Traveling, working, living in different neighborhoods, it'll be good for you." I felt something inside me crack, but not in a way that broke me. More like a fracture that let the truth pour through. "So you all just decided that my life didn't matter," I said. "Oh, stop it," my mother snapped. "We're your parents. We know what's best for you." There it was. The line my parents had used my whole life, whether it was the college they wanted me to attend, the jobs they thought I should take, the money they believed I should be giving. "You'll be fine," my father said again. "Just stop being dramatic." That word again, as if it could minimize theft, betrayal, homelessness. And then Emily, my sister, added quietly, "The new owners move in today, so you should probably hurry if you want to get your things." I stared at the movers behind me. My things were already in boxes. My breath shook once, but when I spoke again, my voice was steady. "Mom, Dad." "Emily." "Yes," my mother said sharply. "You didn't sell what you thought you sold." There was a pause. Long, confused. My father scoffed. "What does that mean?" But I wasn't going to tell them. Not yet. Not while I was standing in the street with 3 movers watching me. "You're all going to find out soon enough," I said. "Find out what?" Emily demanded. "Ava, just say it." "No," I replied. "Not today." I ended the call before they could say another word. I stood still for a moment, the sounds of the street washing around me, my heart pounding in a rhythm I didn't recognize. Anger, clarity, betrayal, power. Finally, I walked back toward the movers. "Let's load everything into storage," I said. "I need to make some calls." The foreman nodded sympathetically. "Rough family situation, huh?" I almost laughed. "You have no idea." As they began lifting boxes into the truck, I stepped aside and pulled up a contact I hadn't called in years. "Samantha Reyes, attorney." I pressed dial. When she answered, I said the words that would ignite the war I never asked for, but was more than ready to fight. "They sold my penthouse while I was on vacation. And I need your help." Samantha was silent for a beat, then her voice hardened. "Ava, listen to me. Do not talk to them again. Not one word. I'm pulling up the trust documents now. We're going to fight this." I exhaled for the first time since Hawaii. "Good," I whispered. "Because they have no idea what they've just started." And as the movers shut the truck doors, I turned away from the building that had been my home and walked toward the battle that was coming. By the time I reached the motel that night, the sky had already turned a deep indigo, and a heavy fog was rolling in from the coast, making everything look blurred and unreal. Maybe that was appropriate. My life felt blurred and unreal, too. I let the door slam shut behind me, locked it twice, and leaned against the wall until my heartbeat settled somewhere closer to normal. The room smelled faintly of bleach and old air freshener. My penthouse used to smell like jasmine candles and ocean breeze. I sat on the edge of the stiff bed staring at the peeling wallpaper as if it might explain how everything I built could vanish in one afternoon. My suitcase lay half unzipped at my feet. Somewhere inside it, underneath rolled-up dresses from Hawaii, was the last normal version of my life. I pulled out my laptop instead. I needed answers before I completely unraveled. My hands trembled as I typed in the password for the digital vault where I kept everything, important scans of documents, financial backups, emails, the original trust paperwork Samantha told me to upload years ago just in case. I never imagined just in case would lead to this. The moment the folder opened, everything sharpened into focus. The trust documents sat right there, PDFs I hadn't looked at since my mid-20s. I clicked them open and read, slowly, deliberately, letting each line sink into me. The penthouse was legally mine. Beneficiary Ava Elise Coleman. Successor rights not transferable without beneficiary approval. Co-signature required for liquidation mandatory. There it was in black and white. No matter what my parents believed, they never had the authority to sell my home. I felt my throat tighten. A strange mix of relief and fury twisted through me. They didn't even bother to check the legality. They just assumed they could do whatever they wanted, because historically, they always did. And historically, I let them. Not anymore. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Call me when you're ready. S.R. Samantha." Efficient as ever, I dialed her immediately. She answered on the first ring. "Ava, I've gone through the trust documents. You're safe legally, but this is going to get much worse before it gets better." I didn't breathe for a moment. "They can't Keep the sale right. They can't keep the money, no, Samantha said. But they've already misrepresented facts to the buyers. They've likely committed fraud by signing documents without you, possibly forgery as well. I'll need more evidence before I can move. I sank back onto the bed. What do I do tonight? Rest, if you can, she said. Tomorrow morning we file, and Ava, do not respond to your family. Silence only. Let me handle it. I nodded even though she couldn't see me. Okay. After the call, I closed the laptop and lay back on the mattress. The springs squeaked faintly beneath me like this space wasn't used to holding someone who'd been through a betrayal heavy enough to collapse a life. The room was too quiet. My thoughts were too loud. Every memory of my parents and Emily pressed against me: birthdays, road trips, laughing in the kitchen, little sister sleepovers. I kept trying to fit those memories alongside what they'd done, but they didn't fit. They didn't even ring true anymore. Maybe the family I thought I had never existed at all. A sudden knock at the door jolted me upright. 3 sharp raps. I froze. No one should know I'm here. Another knock. Ava. It's Rebecca from the front desk. I exhaled and opened the door a few inches. She held a brown envelope. Someone dropped this off for you. My stomach churned. Who? I didn't see. They just said it was urgent. I thanked her and shut the door. I didn't open it immediately. I stared at it, the weight of possible scenarios pressing down on me. An apology, a threat, a last-minute lie, or something worse. I sat on the bed and tore the seal. Inside was a single sheet of paper. My name. An address. A note scrawled in handwriting I recognized instantly. You should have done more to help your sister. You left us no choice, no signature. But I knew who wrote it. My mother. My jaw clenched so hard my teeth ached. My phone buzzed again, this time, an incoming FaceTime call. My parents. I didn't answer. I let it ring until the sound cut off. A moment later, a text arrived. Pick up. I didn't. Another ping. Then another. Stop making this harder than it needs to be. Then, you're acting ungrateful. Then, you put us in a terrible position. You did this to yourself. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break the phone. Instead, I dropped it on the bed and forced myself to breathe. Slow, controlled, focused. The next ping was different. A voice memo. Against my better judgment, I pressed play. My father's voice filled the room. Ava, stop with the dramatics. You're 30 years old. You can rent a place. Your sister would have been destroyed if we didn't step in. You should understand that. Emily means well. You should have been there for her. I hit stop. My entire body buzzed with something electric and dangerous. My parents would never stop trying to rewrite the truth. I needed something solid to hold on to, facts that didn't bend under their manipulation. So I reopened the laptop. I scoured through the real estate records I pulled before calling Samantha. Something didn't sit right earlier, and now I knew what it was. The sale price was far below market value, almost insultingly low. No way a penthouse in Pacific Harbor Tower sold in 48 hours for that amount unless someone pushed it through. Someone desperate. Someone who didn't care about fairness or legality. My parents. And maybe Emily too. My fingers hovered over the trackpad. I clicked open the buyer's contact information. Something in me hesitated, but I needed to know. I dialed. After 4 rings, someone answered. A man's voice, cautious. Hello, hi, I said. This is Ava Coleman. A long pause. The former owner. I swallowed hard. Yes, he exhaled. We were wondering when you'd call. The hairs on my arms rose. What do you mean? I'm sorry you're going through this, he said gently. We were told you were aware of the sale, that you approved everything. My throat tightened. I didn't. He hesitated, then said quietly, We thought something was off. Your parents were extremely pushy. We only signed because the notary was present, and they said you were emotionally unstable and couldn't attend. Emotionally unstable. The phrase hit like a slap. Do you still have the emails I asked? Yes, he said. We saved everything. If you need them for legal reasons, we'll cooperate fully. My voice shook even as I tried to steady it. Thank you, I do. We hung up. The room spun for a second. They hadn't just stolen from me. They'd smeared my name, lied about my mental state, told strangers I was unstable to justify their theft. I pressed both hands against my eyes until the burn faded. Then slowly, deliberately, I opened a new email and wrote to Samantha, I have evidence of misrepresentation from the buyers. They're willing to testify. A second later, a reply came. Good, this is going to help us a lot. Get some sleep, Ava. Tomorrow we begin. Sleep didn't come easily. I lay awake long past midnight, staring up at the cracked motel ceiling, listening to the hum of the mini fridge and distant traffic. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my parents' faces, heard their voices telling me I was dramatic, ungrateful, responsible for Emily's mess. But beneath the grief and disbelief was something stronger. A flame that had been smothered for years was burning again. They thought I'd roll over the way I always had. They thought guilt would keep me quiet. They thought manipulation would keep me in line. They thought I was the same daughter who sacrificed without question. But before dawn even touched the horizon, I already knew the truth. Tomorrow, everything would change. And this time, I wasn't the one who'd fall apart. The sky was still dim when I walked into Samantha's office the next morning, a cardboard cup of lukewarm motel coffee clutched in my hand like a lifeline. The building's lobby was quiet, the kind of early silence that makes every footstep echo. I felt like I was walking into battle without armor, just exhaustion, anger, and a determination I hadn't known I was capable of. Samantha was waiting for me in a conference room with glass walls and stacks of neatly arranged files. She was dressed in a slate gray suit, her expression calm but purposeful. When she saw me, she motioned me inside. You look like you slept 2 hours, she said. I slept 0, I replied. She nodded once. Good. Anger keeps people honest. Sit. I took a seat across from her and she slid a binder in front of me. This is everything we know so far, she said. Your parents used a restricted power of attorney. They forged your signature. They misrepresented your mental state. And they rushed the sale because they were under financial pressure. I swallowed. Emily? Samantha's eyes softened slightly. Yes. The buyers forwarded me the emails last night. Your parents didn't just lie. They created an entire fictional narrative to justify their behavior. She clicked a remote and the screen on the wall lit up with a document. I blinked, realizing it was a screenshot of a text conversation between my parents and the realtor. Scrolling, scrolling, scrolling. Each message was worse than the last. She won't question the papers. She's always traveling. She won't miss it. She's too emotional to handle real estate. She doesn't need that kind of property anyway. I felt my stomach twist. That's not even manipulation, I whispered. It's character assassination. Samantha tapped her pen against the table. They weaponized the idea that you're dramatic because you've allowed them to use that narrative for years. They counted on it. I stared at the screen. All the times they'd dismissed my concerns, rolled their eyes at my boundaries, brushed their mistakes onto me. It wasn't just bad parenting. It was preparation, conditioning. So what now, I asked. Now Samantha said you're going to hear things you're not ready for. She opened another file. Your sister owes a lot more than you know. My pulse quickened. How much? Samantha hesitated for the first time. We're still verifying, but the preliminary number I have is troubling. I braced myself. Say it. 70,000. Mostly gambling. Some predatory loans. I stared at her unblinking. 70,000. And growing, she added. She's been in debt for nearly a year. Your parents have been trying to cover for her without telling you. They refinanced their home. They drained savings. Then they panicked. And you were their solution. The room felt smaller now, the air heavier. I didn't know what hurt more, the betrayal or the realization that they'd been sinking long before I ever stepped foot in Hawaii. I would have helped, I said quietly. If they'd just asked. Samantha nodded. I know. And that's exactly why they didn't ask. I frowned. What do you mean? She leaned forward, folding her hands on the table. They didn't want help. They wanted control. If they had asked you directly, you would have set conditions. Limits. You would have said no at some point. But this way, they could drain everything without ever facing you. My chest tightened, and they expected me to forgive them. They expected you to stay quiet, Samantha corrected. The same way you always have. I didn't argue. I couldn't. She wasn't wrong, but something in me had changed the moment I saw those movers outside my building. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the quiet one. Samantha flipped to another page. You said something felt wrong about the sale price. You were right. They pushed the buyer into waiving inspection. They insisted on a 48-hour closing. They ignored standard procedures. All of that points to intentional fraud. I rubbed my temples. Does this mean we can reverse it? Absolutely, Samantha said. But it's not going to be clean or quick. I exhaled shakily. And there's more. Of course there was. She pulled up a second screen, this one showing a bank statement. Not mine. Where did you get this? I asked. Samantha remained calm. The buyers forwarded it. Your parents accidentally sent the wrong attachment while trying to justify the sale. I stared at the screen. My father's name. My mother's name. A checking account at a small local credit union. And a series of withdrawals every few weeks going back almost a year. Each labeled family emergency. But the amounts? Each withdrawal was under $3,000, just small enough to avoid scrutiny. How much total? I asked, barely breathing. Rough estimate $25,000. And all from my account, yes. The world tilted for a moment. I gripped the edge of the table until the dizziness passed. They've been stealing from me for almost a year. Samantha didn't soften the blow. Ava, this wasn't a sudden decision. This was systematic, deliberate. They groomed the situation to get exactly what they wanted. And Emily, I forced out. Your sister has been participating, Samantha said, in every step. I closed my eyes and saw her face at 14, crying after her first breakup, curled on my bed while I held her. I saw her at 18 wearing my jacket because she forgot hers. I saw her at 22 asking if she could borrow $200 for textbooks. I didn't recognize the person Samantha described. What about the power of attorney? I asked. My mother said they updated it without me. They forged the update, Samantha said. You didn't sign anything. My breath stalled. You mean? Yes, she said. Your signature was drawn, not written. I stared at the wall, numb. Forged, sold, lied about, dehumanized, all by the people who were supposed to protect me. Samantha rested a hand on the table, firm and grounding. Listen to me, Ava. You were not weak. You were trusting. And trust is not stupidity. It's generosity. They exploited that. My voice trembled. What do we do now? We file for an emergency injunction, she said. We freeze the funds. We begin building a fraud case. But before any of that, I need you to understand something. She paused. You need to be ready for the emotional blowback. They will accuse you of betrayal. They will call you dramatic, ungrateful, selfish. They will cry. They will blame Emily's addiction. They will say you ruined the family. I swallowed hard. They already have. Then, be prepared for worse. She leaned back and studied me. You have to stay steady, clear, silent. Let me handle the fire. You just hold the truth. I nodded slowly. I can do that. Good, she said. Because once we file this injunction, there is no turning back. This becomes public record. Your parents will feel cornered, and cornered people lash out. I took a deep breath. I'm ready. Samantha slid a pen across the table. Then sign here. This allows me to take full legal action on your behalf. After this, your parents can't contact you directly about anything related to the case. My hand hovered for a moment, trembling not from fear but from revelation. For the first time in my life, I was standing up to them. I signed. Samantha gathered the papers, already shifting gears into full strategy mode. Go back to your motel, she instructed. Rest. Tomorrow morning we file. First thing. But as I walked to the door, my phone buzzed again. A new message. From Emily. Just 2 words. Stop this. My grip tightened around the phone. Not a sorry. Not a mistake. Not a hint of remorse. A warning. I met Samantha's gaze. It's starting, I said. She nodded. Let it. You're not the one who should be scared. And as I stepped out into the hallway, the weight on my shoulders didn't disappear, but it shifted. For the first time, I wasn't carrying shame. I was carrying truth. And truth was heavier, sharper, and more dangerous than any guilt they'd tried to place on me. The motel walls felt closer the next morning, like the room itself was shrinking around me. I could barely stomach a few bites of a granola bar before grabbing my coat and stepping out into the cold. My energy wasn't nerves anymore. It was something sharper, like clarity coated in steel. Samantha had given me strict instructions. Don't speak to them. Don't respond. Not even one word. But ignoring the flood of messages was like trying to ignore a fire alarm in the same room. My phone buzzed constantly as I waited in the lobby for the rideshare to Samantha's office. Another text from my mother. Ava, it's time to stop. You're embarrassing yourself. Then my father. This is not the way to handle family issues. Then Emily, nice job making everything worse. You're pathetic. I didn't respond. I just stared through the lobby windows and watched cars pass, inhaling deeply to steady myself. They still didn't understand that something inside me had shifted. They still thought guilt would break me. Not today. When I reached Samantha's office, she was already standing in the doorway holding a stack of papers thick enough to stun a small animal. Come in, she said. We have work to do. Inside the conference room, every inch of the table was covered timelines, documents, printouts, screenshots. A whiteboard displayed my name at the top, underlined twice, followed by 3 bullet points: trust, forged POA, misrepresentation. Today we build your case, Samantha said. Tomorrow we go to court. I pulled out the chair and sat down. What do you need me to do? Tell me everything, she replied. Start from the beginning. The moment they first asked for money, the first time something felt wrong. Every call, every conversation about helping Emily, every request that didn't sit right. So I did. For the first time, I laid out every moment I dismissed, every red flag I'd minimized, every time I chose silence for the sake of family peace. Samantha listened without interrupting, jotting notes in neat, controlled strokes. When I finished, she set the pen down. Ava, she said softly, this wasn't a one-time betrayal. This was a long-term pattern of financial and emotional exploitation. I looked down at my hands. I let them do it. For years. She shook her head. No, they conditioned you to believe compliance was love. The words hit me with more force than I expected. Before I could process it further, Samantha opened a folder labeled Buyer File. We need to document their side of the story too, she said, pulling out a printed email. It was from the buyers, Daniel and Megan. I recognized the email chain. They'd sent it to me the night before. But seeing it printed made it more real. Subject line: seller concerns, date 1 week before the sale. Mrs. Coleman has informed us that Ava is unavailable due to mental and emotional health issues. My throat tightened, and that any attempt to contact her would cause significant distress. I pressed a hand to my chest. They told strangers I was unstable. They dehumanized you, Samantha corrected. Because if you weren't seen as competent, it made the sale easier to force. I swallowed hard. What else did they say? Samantha slid another page toward me. This one was a screenshot of messages. My mother to the realtor Ava is too fragile to handle legal documents. Ava shuts down under pressure. Ava won't understand the urgency. The lies layered on lies. All while I was out in Hawaii drinking coconut smoothies on a beach, oblivious to the storm tearing apart my life. I pushed the pages away. I need air for a second. Samantha nodded. Take your time. I stepped out onto the small balcony attached to the conference room. The city stretched below me, cars humming, people moving like they had somewhere important to be. Life was continuing without any awareness of the implosion happening inside me. I leaned on the railing, inhaling cool morning air. How long had they seen me this way? As an emotional liability, as a resource, as someone they could rewrite into whatever version benefited them. The sliding door opened behind me. Samantha joined me. "You're not weak," she said. "You're not fragile. And you're not what they said you were." I stared out at the skyline. "I know." "But they didn't." "No," she said. "They chose not to." Her tone shifted. "And now we counter with facts." We went back inside and began sorting the evidence piece by piece. Every document, every timeline, every email. Samantha explained how each one contributed to a clear pattern: misuse of power of attorney, forgery, financial abuse, intentional misrepresentation, coercion, exploitation of trust. With every page, I felt my anger solidify into something steadier, cleaner, not rage, resolve. At noon, Samantha brought in a forensic document analyst, Dr. Hale, a calm, older man with silver hair and a briefcase filled with magnifying tools. He laid out the forged signature next to my real one. Under magnification, the differences were glaring. "This is traced," he said, pointing with a gloved finger. "Notice the hesitations here, and here." "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means the person who signed your name wasn't writing, they were copying." Slowly, a chill ran down my spine. Emily, my sister, her handwriting was sloppy, childish, but she had always been good at copying mine. She used to forge parents' signatures on school permission slips flawlessly. I'd laughed about it back then. Now that skill had dismantled my life. The analyst continued. "I can testify to the forgery without question." Samantha nodded. "Good, we'll need you." By early afternoon, we took a short break. I sat on the couch in Samantha's office, staring at the ceiling, letting my brain breathe. Then, my phone lit up. A call from my father. I let it go to voicemail. 10 seconds later, another call. My mother declined. Then a text from Emily. "If you take us to court, I swear you'll regret it." My heart thudded once hard, but the fear didn't stick this time. I walked back into the conference room and put the phone on the table. Samantha glanced at it and raised an eyebrow. "Threats," I nodded. "Good," she said. I blinked. "Good. It strengthens the psychological abuse angle," she said. "Keep everything." We continued working until the sun shifted across the floor tiles. The whiteboard filled with lines connecting dates and names and dollar amounts. My parents' lies were no longer shadows, they were documented facts. At 5, Samantha capped her marker and stepped back. "This," she said, gesturing to the board, "is the story you've been living in, and tomorrow we begin tearing it down." I exhaled slowly. "It's worse than I thought." "It usually is," Samantha said gently. "People like your parents don't fall into fraud. They slide into it over time, little by little." "And Emily?" I asked quietly. Samantha hesitated. "Emily made choices. Many. None of them were accidents." The truth settled over me like a weight. She wasn't a helpless victim. She wasn't a child. She was a grown woman who decided my stability was her safety net, that my success was her entitlement, that my home was disposable. And my parents reinforced every step. Samantha gathered her files. "Go back to the motel. Rest. Tomorrow is the emergency injunction hearing. Be here at 8 sharp. I nodded and stood slipping my coat on. But as I reached the door, Samantha called after me, and Ava turned. "You're doing the right thing. Don't let their guilt tactics convince you otherwise." I held her gaze. "I won't." Outside, the evening air bit at my skin, but I didn't shiver. For the first time in my life, I was walking away from them. Not just physically, emotionally, psychologically, finally fully. And as I climbed into the rideshare, one thought anchored itself in my mind, a thought that no guilt, no tears, no manipulation could ever shake loose now. They broke the daughter who used to protect them. But the woman who rose in her place was someone they could no longer control. The motel room felt colder than usual when I returned that evening, but maybe that was just me, hollowed out, stretched thin, held together by stubbornness, and the faint hum of adrenaline. The sun had already dipped below the buildings outside, leaving the sky streaked with bruised purple. I locked the door, tossed my coat over a chair, and stared at the papers I'd spread across the bed before leaving that morning. For a moment I just stood there. Then I sat. Then I broke. Not in tears, those were coming later. I could feel them waiting, but in that quiet, stunned way where your body refuses to move because your mind is still trying to understand the magnitude of what's happening. I reached for the trust documents first. The pages were still warm from where my hands had lingered earlier. Every line felt like a lifeline: my name, my rights, my protection against the people who should have protected me. I tried to read the words again, but they blurred. My chest tightened. I forced myself to inhale slowly the way Samantha had told me to when the panic crept in. My phone buzzed. I didn't want to look. I already knew. Mom, Dad, Emily again. And then another FaceTime request. I let it ring. I wanted silence. But the silence didn't last long. The phone lit up again. My mother's name. This time I answered. Her face filled the screen tight and irritated, as if I'd been the one who ruined her week. "There you are," she snapped. "Finally." I didn't speak. My father appeared behind her. Emily hovered in the corner of the frame, arms crossed, eyes rolling like she couldn't believe I'd made them wait 24 whole hours to berate me again. My mother sighed dramatically. "Ava, we've been trying to reach you all day. Avoiding us is childish." I leaned back, my voice calm. "Why are you calling?" She blinked, offended. "Why?" "Because you're having a tantrum over nothing." "Nothing?" My voice stayed steady. "You sold my home. We saved your sister." My father corrected sharply. "There's a difference." Emily stepped forward, then flipping her hair. "Can we skip the lecture, Ava? You're being ridiculous. You don't need a penthouse." "I did need a home," I said evenly. "One you stole." "It's not stealing if it was for the family," my mother insisted. I laughed once, a quiet, humorless sound. "Is that what you tell yourselves when you sign my name on documents I never saw?" All three of them froze. My mother's eyes narrowed. "Ava, what exactly are you implying?" "I'm not implying anything I said. I'm stating it." "You forged my signature," my father bristled. "Watch your tone." "Or what I asked." "You'll sell something else that isn't yours," Emily scoffed. "God, here we go. You always act like the martyr." "You're 30, Ava. Grow up." "Emily," I said softly, "you forged my name." She rolled her eyes. "You always exaggerate." "No," I said. "I don't." Silence. For once, none of them had a ready excuse. My mother leaned toward the screen. "Ava, sweetheart, listen. You're clearly overwhelmed. All this anger, stop," I said. "Just stop." Her mouth snapped shut. I continued. "If you wanted help, you could have asked. Instead, you lied, manipulated, and committed fraud." My father's voice rose. "Fraud, don't be dramatic." There it was again. Dramatic. Like my emotions were a performance, like their choices were a misunderstanding, like my life was a stage they controlled. I leaned forward, staring into the camera. "Dad." I found the bank statements. His face drained. "What, the transfers?" I said. "To Emily. To you. To the payday lender. All the withdrawals labeled family emergency from my account." Emily's lips parted in shock. "You snooped in our money." "It's my money," I said sharply. "My account. My savings. You drained me behind my back." My mother sputtered. "We needed it. You've always had more." Something inside me twisted. Not heartbreak, recognition. That was the truth they'd never said aloud until now. "You think my success means I owe you," I said slowly. "You think because I worked hard and built a life that life belongs to you. That's what family is," my father snapped. "We take care of each other." "No," I whispered. "I take care of everyone. You take from me." My mother gasped, offended. How dare you? How dare you? I cut in. After everything I've done, all the help, all the money, all the time I spent covering for Emily, all the times I put myself last for you. And you repay me by stealing the roof over my head. Emily stepped closer to the camera, eyes blazing. You think you're better than us? No, I said. I think I'm responsible for myself. Something you've never learned. She lunged for the phone as if she wanted to scream directly into my face. You ruined my life by calling that lawyer. Do you get that? Do you get what you've done to me? I stared at her, unblinking. I saved my life. If that ruined yours, maybe it needed to be ruined. My mother's voice broke. You'll tear this family apart. You tore it apart the moment you forged my name, I said quietly. My father glared. You're going to regret this. I almost smiled. No, you are. My mother's face contorted with rage. Ava, you will lose everything. We won't stand for this. Mom, I said you already took everything. The call erupted, voices overlapping, shouting, blaming, accusing. All three of them screaming in some twisted chorus of entitlement and desperation. I didn't listen. I just lowered the phone from my ear and stared at my own reflection in the black screen when the call disconnected. Calm. Steady. Unshaken. I breathed in once, then reached for my laptop. Within minutes, I had screenshots of every message they'd sent, every accusation, every threat, every lie. I forwarded them to Samantha. A single bubble appeared a moment later. Good. This helps our case. See you at 9 a.m. We're filing. I sat back on the bed as the room darkened around me. My parents thought they'd broken me. My sister thought I'd collapse under guilt. None of them understood. I didn't build my life by breaking. I built it by surviving. And tomorrow morning they'd learn what that really meant. The motel room was still dark when my eyes opened long before sunrise. I hadn't slept more than 20 minutes at a time, but strangely, I didn't feel exhausted. I felt clear, sharp, focused in a way I hadn't been since the day I came home to strangers holding the keys to my life. I sat up, pushed the thin blanket off my legs, and stared at the stack of documents on the desk, my trust papers, the forged sale contract, screenshots of messages, emails from the buyers. Today was the emergency injunction hearing. Today was the first time I'd faced them indirectly inside a courtroom. I stood showered, tied my hair back into a low, clean twist, and put on the navy blazer I'd worn for my first job interview 13 years ago. The fabric felt like armor. I printed every file again, double-checked, each page, slid them into labeled folders. Before I walked out the door, I whispered to myself, steady and quiet, if they wanted a fight, they're about to get one. Something inside me shifted with those words, not rage, but strategy. Not frantic survival, but calculated determination. I wasn't a victim walking into court. I was a woman reclaiming her life. Outside the courthouse, Samantha was waiting. Mid-40s hair in a sleek braid, sharp eyes, softened by something almost maternal. She approached me with a brief, grounding hug. You're doing the right thing, she said. Her assurance settled the shaking in my hands a little. We sat on a bench outside the courtroom as clerks and attorneys passed by. Samantha opened her leather folder. Here's the plan. First, we validate the trust. You are the sole owner of the penthouse. Second, we outline the restrictions in the power of attorney. Third, we present early proof of fraud and financial abuse. And last, we request a full freeze of all accounts tied to the sale. Hearing it spoken aloud made everything real. Before we go in, she added, voice dropping, I need to ask you something. What she studied my face. What haven't you told me yet? A chill moved down my spine. I hesitated, then the words slipped out heavy and true. My parents don't see me as a person. They see me as a resource. Samantha's expression softened, not with pity but with understanding. Then we prove legally and permanently that they no longer have access to your life. I inhaled slowly. Okay. The bailiff opened the doors. Coleman versus Coleman injunction hearing. We walked in. My parents weren't there yet. They were allowed to send a representative for the injunction. Instead, their attorney sat at the opposite table, Harold Bain, a tall man with a too-wide smile that didn't reach his eyes. He glanced at me and said, "Morning, Miss Coleman. Rough family arguments happen to everyone." I said nothing. Samantha didn't bother to hide her scoff. The judge stepped in. Judge Rachel Manning's stern, efficient, the kind of woman who wasted no time and accepted no nonsense. We all rose, then sat. Samantha began. "Your Honor, my client seeks an emergency injunction due to the fraudulent sale of her penthouse while she was out of state. We have documentation confirming that the property belongs solely to her under the Coleman Family Trust. The defendants used a restricted power of attorney intended only for medical emergencies to execute a real estate transaction. The signature on the contract shows clear signs of forgery. We have emails proving misrepresentation to the buyers and records of financial abuse extending months prior." She placed each folder on the judge's bench with precision. "Third, we present early proof of fraud and financial abuse. And last, we request a full freeze of all accounts tied to the sale." Hearing it spoken aloud made everything real. "Before we go in," she added, voice dropping, "I need to ask you something. What she studied my face. What haven't you told me yet?" A chill moved down my spine. I hesitated, then the words slipped out heavy and true. "My parents don't see me as a person. They see me as a resource." "Well, the POA grants broad discretion." "Show me," she said again. His face went pale. There is no explicit." She held up a hand. "Sit down, Mr. Bain." I felt a spark of vindication ignite deep in my chest. The judge tapped her pen. "I am ordering both sides to submit full evidence within 72 hours. However, she glanced at my documents again. "Given the severity of the allegations, I am inclined to freeze all accounts connected to the sale until the full hearing." Bain jerked upright. "Your Honor, that will cause significant hardship." "If you object one more time without legal grounds," she said in a low, lethal tone, "I will fine you." He sank back into his seat. The judge continued. "Full hearing scheduled for Friday at 9 a.m. Bang. The gavel dropped. Samantha touched my arm. "Let's go." We didn't return to the motel. Instead, we drove straight to her office where the real war began. Papers filled the conference table. A whiteboard covered one wall already marked with timelines. Samantha introduced two specialists. Dr. Keaton Hale, forensic document analyst, silver-haired, methodical, and Patrice Nguyen, financial investigator with a calm, razor-sharp demeanor. Dr. Keaton began with the forged signature. He pulled up magnified images on a large screen. "Notice the pressure points," he said. "They're wrong. The spacing is inconsistent. The loop in Coleman is completely different." He zoomed in further. "These micro-tremors," he continued. "This indicates someone drew the signature slowly, carefully. Your actual signature is fluid." My stomach twisted. Emily used to copy my signature on school notes. The thought made bile rise in my throat. "I can testify to this," Dr. Keaton said. "It's textbook forgery." Next, Patrice opened her laptop. "We've reviewed 10 months of transactions, small withdrawals under $300 each taken repeatedly. Some occurred on days you were out of town, Miss Coleman." She highlighted lines. "Transfers labeled family reimbursement. Others marked personal loan settlement. And here, money flowed to online gambling accounts, 2 casinos in Nevada, and a predatory lender with a 24% interest rate." I stared at the screen, numb. "They weren't saving Emily," I whispered. "They were spiraling with her." Patrice nodded grimly. "This wasn't an emergency. This was long-term coordinated financial abuse." Then she clicked to another spreadsheet. "New findings," she said. "Your parents' joint account made recurring payments to a Nevada attorney." "Why?" I asked. "This attorney specializes in gambling debt negotiation." Silence fell over the room. "They lied," I whispered. "They told everyone Emily had medical issues." This, Patrice said, gently proves the sale was motivated by ongoing concealed fraud. Samantha stood and paced once, then faced me. Ava, listen. Your parents will fight viciously. They will guilt-trip you. They will attack your character. They will lie under oath. I know, I said. You must remain grounded. They expect you to crumble. I met her eyes. I won't. She nodded, satisfied. We were wrapping up when Samantha's computer chimed. A new email. Subject: new evidence. Submitted video file attached, urgent. Samantha clicked. A grainy security camera recording filled the screen. My parents. Emily. Inside a notary's office. Leaning over a desk. Whispering. Nervous. Emily held a pen, hesitated, then began signing. In my handwriting. My father leaned in. No, sign it cleaner. She signs her A tighter than that. I froze. The video ended. The room stayed silent until Samantha exhaled sharply. Well, she whispered, they just handed us everything. I couldn't speak. I couldn't blink. I could only stare at the frozen frame on the screen, my family catching themselves on tape, committing the deepest betrayal of my life. And all I could think was, the truth always finds its way to the surface. Samantha paused the security footage at the exact frame where Emily hesitated, pen hovering over the document, her eyes darting nervously toward my parents. My sister's hand trembled as she shaped the first curve of the A in my name. My A, the one she'd practiced copying years ago on school notes. My chest tightened, not with shock, but with a quiet grief I hadn't expected. This wasn't an accident, I whispered. This wasn't confusion. This was intent. Samantha leaned forward, her voice low and controlled. This video alone proves deliberate fraud. But if you're ready, Ava, we're going to dig deeper. I nodded. My voice wouldn't have held steady if I tried to speak. She clicked away from the footage and pulled up a legal document. Here's the plan. 4 immediate steps. She lifted 4 fingers. First, we finish filing the emergency injunction today. All accounts connected to the sale frozen. They won't move a penny. I exhaled slowly. Second, we submit the footage as evidence of intentional forgery. Third, we subpoena the realtor Olivia Marks. Fourth, we subpoena your parents and Emily for a mandatory financial disclosure. I blinked. Financial disclosure. Meaning every account, Samantha said. Even the ones they've kept hidden from you. A strange relief washed through me. I wanted the whole truth exposed, even if it shattered whatever illusion of family I had left. A knock echoed down the hallway. Samantha glanced at the door. That should be Olivia. Olivia Marks entered with her attorney beside her, clutching a folder that looked too heavy for someone so small. She sat, her hands trembling. I didn't know, she said softly. I swear I didn't know this was fraud. Samantha's tone stayed even. Tell us what you do know. Olivia swallowed. Your parents were intense. They insisted on a rush sale. They said you were unavailable. They told me you were emotionally unstable and easily overwhelmed. She hesitated. Your mother said, we don't want Ava involved. She'll only make things harder. It hit me like a blunt object. Olivia took a shaky breath and slid a printed email across the table. This is the one that made me come forward. Samantha picked it up, eyes narrowing. I leaned closer. Subject: urgency explanation. From Thomas Coleman. Ava doesn't understand how to manage large assets. We need to liquidate her property before things get worse. Our family trust gives us full control. Lies. All lies. My voice came out thin. They really said this, Olivia nodded. I'll testify to everything. We thanked her, and she left looking lighter, as if handing over that folder had lifted a weight off her soul. Moments later, Patrice entered with a folder, thick enough to knock someone out. She set it down with a thud. Brace yourselves. Samantha crossed her arms. Let's hear it. Patrice opened the folder. Your parents and sister maintain 3 hidden accounts. The first received small withdrawals from your account for 18 months, always under $300 to avoid detection. My jaw tightened. The second is tied to an online gambling platform Emily uses frequently. I shut my eyes. And the third, Patrice continued, is labeled Family Emergency Fund. But the only deposits ever made into it were yours. I felt something inside me crack. So they were draining me long before the penthouse. Systematic financial abuse, Patrice said gently. Then she projected a spreadsheet onto the screen. Here's the real motive. Nearly $70,000 owed to gambling apps. $20,000 owed to a predatory lender. Past debts from last year that forced my parents to mortgage their house. Possible foreclosure coming. Patrice looked at me. Selling your penthouse wasn't desperation. It was their final plan. I whispered. They were willing to bankrupt me, to save her. The truth settled over the room like smoke. I stepped out onto Samantha's balcony to breathe. The wind bit cold against my cheeks, and down below the city kept moving without any clue that my life was unraveling. I thought of every time I'd stepped up, helped out, filled gaps they created. And every time they rewarded Emily's chaos while dismissing my stability. This wasn't one betrayal. This was a pattern, one they'd spent years perfecting. When I walked back inside, I felt steadier. Let's finish. Samantha began preparing me for the hearing. Your parents will use emotion like a weapon. Expect crying, blame. Claims you're destroying the family. I won't respond, I said. Good. Stick to facts. Truth doesn't need theatrics. Before we could continue, the office door opened again. Two people stepped inside, Daniel and Megan, the prospective buyers of my penthouse. They looked apologetic, hesitant. Sorry to barge in, Daniel said, setting a folder on the table. But we want to help. Inside the folder were voicemails from my mother demanding urgent signatures, texts from my father pushing midnight meetings, and notes from their attorney warning the sale seemed unusually rushed. We weren't sure who to believe, Megan said softly. But now, it's obvious. Their offer to testify gave our case something powerful, credibility from neutral victims of the fraud. Just when I thought the day couldn't get heavier, Samantha's laptop chimed. She opened a new document, then her eyebrows shot up. It's the notary's statement. We leaned in. He admitted he didn't verify my ID. He allowed my parents to vouch for me. He allowed Emily to sign while he looked away. He believed their claim that I had approved everything. And now, realizing the truth, he wanted to cooperate. This is catastrophic for them, Samantha said, updating the massive evidence board on the wall. Forgery, fraud, financial abuse, trust, violation, Mises witnesses, motive. I stared at the board, overwhelmed. This is everything they did to me. No, Samantha said, softly but firmly. This is everything we will prove. I nodded, feeling the weight, but also the strength of it. I was gathering my bag when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I opened the message. Stop this, Ava. You're going to regret it. Then another. Think about inheritance. Think about family. The truth settled over the room like smoke. I stepped out onto Samantha's balcony to breathe. The wind bit cold against my cheeks, and down below the city kept moving without any clue that my life was unraveling. I thought of every time I'd stepped up, helped out, filled gaps they created. And every time they rewarded Emily's chaos while dismissing my stability. This wasn't one betrayal. This was a pattern, one they'd spent years perfecting. When I walked back inside, I felt steadier. I kept replaying every step that had brought me here, from the moment I stepped out of that rideshare and saw my belongings on the sidewalk to the forged documents to Emily's threats to my parents' venom disguised as righteousness. But by the time I stood outside my parents' front door, I felt strangely calm. Not numb, not angry, just ready. I knocked once. The door whipped open so fast it hit the wall behind it. My father stood there, jaw clenched, his face red, as if he'd been pacing the house waiting for me. Get inside, he snapped. I stepped in. The house looked the same as ever, cozy furniture, warm-toned walls, framed family photos everywhere. A normal home, a loving home, a lie wrapped in drywall and carpet. My mother appeared from the kitchen, her expression icy. We need to talk. Emily sat on the couch, arms folded, acting like she was the victim in all of this. I stayed by the entryway, refusing to move further into their space. What do you want to talk about? I asked. My father slammed the door shut behind me. What the hell do you think you're doing, filing complaints, lawyers, freezing accounts? Do you have any idea how much trouble you're causing? I met his glare evenly. Everything I'm doing is undoing what you did first. My mother stepped closer, lowering her voice like she was the reasonable one. Ava, sweetheart, you're making a huge mistake. You're blowing things out of proportion. You sold my penthouse, I said. You emptied my bank account. You forged my signature. Which part do you think I'm blowing out of proportion? Emily groaned dramatically. There she goes again. My mother glared at her. Not helping. I ignored them both and looked directly at my parents. You wanted to talk, then talk? My father crossed his arms. You're going to drop whatever case that lawyer is working on. No, I said. You don't have a choice, he shot back. Yes, I said calmly. I do, my mother huffed. Ava, this is your family. You don't turn your back on family when they're struggling. I tilted my head. But you turned your back on me. That's not the same, she snapped. Why not? Because we're your parents. Ah. There it was, the sacred, unchallenged justification for every boundary crossed, every guilt trip, launched, every manipulation disguised as love. You think being my parents gives you ownership over my life, I said. It doesn't. Emily let out a sharp laugh. God, you're so dramatic. At that, something inside me settled, not anger, but certainty. I turned to her. Emily, look at me. She rolled her eyes, but did. You stole from me. I borrowed from you, she corrected. Big difference. You forged my signature, I said. She opened her mouth to deny it, but then shut it again, jaw clenching. My mother quickly stepped in, voice trembling with practiced emotion. Ava, we only did what we did because we love you. That's not love, I said. That's control. My father pointed a shaking finger at me. Your sister was going to lose everything. She could have been hurt. You have money, you were supposed to help. You never asked, I said. You would have said no. Maybe, I said. That's my right, Emily scoffed. You don't care about me. You just care about your stupid penthouse. I stared at her. My home mattered to me. But what mattered more was that you didn't think I deserved a say. For a moment, even if only a moment, Emily's expression faltered. Then my mother exploded. Fine, you want the truth. We knew you wouldn't help. You always act like you're better than everyone. Because you got a fancy job and a fancy apartment, so that justifies stealing from me. I asked quietly. She threw her hands up. We're your family. We're entitled. Stop. The room froze. I'd never spoken to them like that before. Not once in 30 years. I used to shrink around their anger, flinch at their disappointment, fold under their pressure. Not today. I stepped forward. You keep saying the word family like it's a shield, like it excuses everything. But family is supposed to protect you, not dismantle your life. My father's voice cracked with rage. You ungrateful little. I'm done, I said. They blinked. Emily frowned. Done with what? With all of this. I reached into my bag and pulled out the envelope Samantha had given me. This is notice of legal action. The injunction hearing is today. You'll receive copies from the court, but I'm giving you this now so you can't say you didn't know. My mother snatched the envelope. Ava, don't you dare do this. It's already done, I said. You crossed every line you could cross, and now you face the consequences. You'll ruin us, she cried. No, I said. You ruined yourselves. Emily stood suddenly. You're seriously going through with this? Over an apartment? No, I said. Over betrayal. My father stepped toward me. If you walk out that door, I'm walking out, I said. You're not welcome back. The words bounced through the room like a thrown object. I breathed once. Then again. Then I said softly, I was never welcome in the first place. Not unless I was useful. My mother lunged forward as if to stop me, but I stepped around her. My father shouted something behind me. Emily cursed. But I didn't stop, didn't turn, didn't flinch. I opened the door to the bright morning light outside, stepped onto the porch, and closed it behind me. For the first time in my life, the silence that followed didn't scare me. It set me free. I walked down the front steps, my heartbeat steady, my mind clear. I didn't belong to them anymore. I didn't owe them anything anymore. And as I reached the sidewalk, my phone buzzed with a message from Samantha. "Ready when you are. The judge is reviewing the filing. Get here quick." I typed back on my way. Then I looked at the house one last time. Not with grief, not with longing, with closure. Because whatever happened in that courtroom later, whatever war my parents and Emily tried to wage next, I wasn't fighting as their daughter anymore. I was fighting as myself, and they had no idea how much stronger that made me. The courthouse parking lot was already half full when I arrived, sunlight bouncing off windshields and reflecting sharply off the building's glass exterior. My stomach twisted, but not from fear. It was something heavier, anticipation mixed with a grim,